For 10 years, Hannah Cole believed she knew exactly what love looked like. It had Noah's laughter in the mornings, it had bedtime stories whispered under dim lights, it had a small hand gripping hers in crowded streets, it had certainty. Until one piece of paper taught her that none of it was real. The city never really slept, but Hannah Cole had learned how to. Not deeply, not peacefully, just enough to wake up and keep moving. At 6:12 a.m., her alarm buzzed softly against the marble nightstand. She silenced it before the second vibration, a habit carved from years of discipline. Outside her Upper West Side apartment, the early morning light stretched between glass towers, pale and indifferent. She sat up slowly, pressing her palm against her chest as if steadying something fragile inside. Another day, another version of normal. "Mom?" The voice came from the hallway, sleepy, slightly hoarse, unmistakably Noah. Hannah's lips softened into a reflexive smile. "In here, sweetheart." He appeared a second later, barefoot, hair tousled in every direction. 10 years old now, but still carrying traces of the toddler who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. "I had a real dream," he said, rubbing his eyes. "You were gone." Hannah felt something tighten in her chest, quick and sharp. "Well," she said gently, pulling the blanket aside, "I'm right here." He climbed into the bed without hesitation, curling into her side like it was the most natural thing in the world. And maybe it was. For 10 years it had been. She pressed her lips to his hair. "You're not going anywhere, right?" he murmured. "Not a chance." She meant it. At least, she thought she did. By 8:30 a.m., the apartment had transformed into a controlled chaos of backpacks, coffee mugs, and half-finished conversations. "Noah, shoes," Hannah called, fastening her watch as she scanned her phone for missed emails. "I'm wearing them." "You're holding them." A pause. "Same difference." She exhaled through a smile, rubbing her blazer from the chair. Life moved fast in New York, but mornings with Noah had their own rhythm, messy, imperfect, grounding. It was the only part of her life that didn't feel like a performance. Everything else, that was strategy. At 9:15, she was stepping into the elevator of a downtown law firm, heels clicking with quiet authority. Conversations hushed slightly when she passed. Hannah Cole, senior partner, the woman who never lost custody battles, the woman who understood families better than anyone else. If only they knew. "Hannah," her assistant called, catching up with the tablet in hand. "You've got a call from Mercy General. It's about Noah's file." Hannah stopped mid-step. "Is everything okay?" "They didn't say, just asked for you directly." A flicker of unease slipped under her composed exterior. "I'll take it in my office." The office overlooked the Hudson. Wide windows, minimalist decor, everything in its place. Control. Hannah closed the door behind her and picked up the phone. "This is Hannah Cole." A brief pause. Then, "Miss Cole, this is Dr. Ramirez from Mercy General. We ran some preliminary tests on Noah's blood work after his recent symptoms." Hannah's grip tightened slightly. "Yes?" "There's an inconsistency we need to discuss." Her stomach dropped, not dramatically, not loudly, but with a quiet certainty that something had just shifted. "What kind of inconsistency?" Another pause, longer this time. "It would be best if you came in." "I'm his mother," Hannah said, her voice sharpening just enough. "You can tell me." On the other end, a breath. Then carefully, "The genetic markers don't align." Silence filled the room like rising water. "I don't understand." "It suggests that, biologically speaking, you may not be related to Noah." The words didn't hit all at once. They landed slowly, piece by piece, like fragments of something breaking in the distance. "That's not possible." "I understand this is difficult, no," she said firmly, standing now. "There must be a mistake. Run the test again." "We already did." Hannah's reflection stared back at her from the glass window, sharp, controlled, unshaken. Except her hand was trembling. "That's my son," she said, quieter now. "I gave birth to him." Another pause. "Miss Cole, we need you to come in." That evening, Hannah stood in the kitchen, watching Noah laugh at something on his tablet. Same eyes, same smile. 10 years of scraped knees, bedtime stories, whispered fears. 10 years. Her chest tightened. "Hey," Noah said, glancing up. Are you okay? She forced a smile. Of course. But for the first time in a decade, the word felt unfamiliar, like something she no longer fully understood. Across the room, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You deserve to know the truth about Ethan. Hannah froze. The past, quiet, buried, untouchable, had just found its way back. And this time, it wasn't asking for permission. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet dread. Hannah had always hated places like this, not because of illness, but because of uncertainty. Hospitals were where answers lived, but never the kind you wanted. She stood at the reception desk of Mercy General, fingers curled tightly around the strap of her leather bag. Miss Cole, a nurse called gently. Hannah turned, her posture instinctively straightening. Yes, Dr. Ramirez is ready for you. Of course he was. The hallway felt longer than it should have. Every step echoed too loudly, like her body was trying to warn her to turn back. But Hannah Cole didn't turn back. Not in court, not in life, not now. Dr. Ramirez's office was smaller than she expected, too ordinary for something that had already begun to fracture her reality. Please, sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Hannah didn't sit immediately. I want to see the results. No small talk. No softening. He nodded, sliding a folder across the desk. She opened it. Numbers, charts, clinical language. Cold, precise, indifferent. Her eyes scanned quickly, professionally, like she was reviewing evidence in a case. Except this wasn't a case. This was her life. Explain it, she said. Dr. Ramirez folded his hands. The test compares specific genetic markers between you and Noah. In a biological parent-child relationship, there are consistent overlaps. And there are none. The words landed flat, almost weightless. No, Hannah said immediately. That's not, no. There has to be some margin of error. Contamination, mislabeling, something. We considered that, he replied calmly, which is why we ran the test twice, from two separate samples. Hannah's pulse began to rise. And both came back the same? Yes. She let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but there was nothing humorous in it. That's impossible. Dr. Ramirez didn't argue. Instead, he said something worse. It's unlikely, but not impossible. Hannah finally sat down. Her mind moved fast, grasping for logic, for structure, anything that made sense. I carried him, she said, her voice lower now. I was pregnant for 9 months. I gave birth to him at this hospital. Yes, Dr. Ramirez said carefully, which suggests one of two possibilities. Hannah looked up, her eyes sharp. Either there was a hospital mix-up at birth, the room seemed to tilt slightly, or the child you gave birth to is not the child you took home. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. No, she whispered, because that would mean 10 years. 10 years of loving someone else's child. 10 years of someone else raising hers. No, she repeated, louder this time. That doesn't make any sense. There would have been records, lawsuits, something. You don't just switch babies and no one notices. It's rare, he admitted, but it has happened. Hannah stood abruptly, pacing once across the room before stopping at the window. The city stretched out below, alive, indifferent. How do we confirm this? She asked. Dr. Ramirez hesitated. We would need to run additional tests, possibly locate biological matches through national DNA databases. And Noah? She asked, turning back. What about him? He would need to be tested as well. Hannah's expression hardened. He's 10 years old. I understand. No, you don't, she snapped, the first crack in her composure. You're asking me to tell my son that I might not be his mother. I'm asking you to find the truth. The word hit differently now. Truth. Hannah had built her entire career on it, uncovering it, defending it, weaponizing it when necessary. But this felt like something else entirely, something crueler. Noah doesn't need to know, she said after a long pause. Dr. Ramirez studied her. Not yet. The drive home felt unreal. Traffic lights changed, people crossed streets. Life moved exactly as it should. But inside the car, everything was wrong. Hannah gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, her thoughts spiraling in sharp, controlled fragments. Hospital error. It had to be. There was no other explanation. Because the alternative... No. She wouldn't even let herself think it. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The same one from last night. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? A pause. Then a man's voice, low, measured. You went to the hospital today. Hannah's body went still. Who is this? You already know something's wrong, he continued, ignoring her question. But you're looking in the wrong place. Her pulse quickened. What are you talking about? It's not the hospital. The words came softly, deliberately. It's your husband. Hannah's grip tightened on the phone. My husband is dead. Another pause. Not everything about him is. The line went dead. When Hannah stepped into the apartment, everything looked the same. The couch, the kitchen, Noah's backpack tossed carelessly by the door. Normal. Mom? Noah called from his room. You're home? Yeah, she answered automatically. She walked down the hallway slowly, each step heavier than the last. Noah was sitting on the floor, building something out of scattered pieces, focused, content. He looked up, smiling. Look, I fixed it. Hannah stared at him, at the boy she had raised, the boy she had loved without question, the boy who... Her chest tightened. Hey, Noah said, frowning slightly. You okay? She nodded quickly. Yeah, I'm just... tired. He studied her for a moment longer than usual. Kids notice things, more than adults ever realize. Did I do something wrong? He asked quietly. The question hit harder than anything else that day. Hannah crossed the room in 2 quick steps and knelt in front of him. No, she said firmly, cupping his face. No, never. Her voice softened. You did nothing wrong. And she meant it. Because whatever this was, whatever truth was waiting to be uncovered, it wasn't Noah's fault. He leaned into her touch instinctively, and for a moment, everything felt the same again. Familiar, real. But as Hannah held him, one thought echoed louder than the rest. If he's not mine, then where is the child I lost? That night, long after Noah had fallen asleep, Hannah sat alone in the living room. The city lights flickered through the windows. Her laptop glowed softly in the dark. On the screen, Ethan Cole, medical records. Ethan Cole, financial history. Ethan Cole, anything, everything. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. For 10 years, she had protected his memory, defended it, loved it. But now she wasn't sure she had ever truly known the man she married. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. This time, just an address, and one sentence. If you want the truth, come alone. Hannah stared at the screen. Fear crept in slowly, but something else followed it. Something stronger. Determination. Because if there was one thing Hannah Cole didn't do, it was walk away from the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Across the hallway, Noah shifted in his sleep, murmuring something soft, unclear. Hannah glanced toward his door. Her expression tightened. Whatever she was about to uncover could change everything. Not just for her, but for him. Forever. The address led to Brooklyn. Not the polished kind, the curated brownstones and boutique cafes, but the quieter, older streets where time seemed to linger just a little longer than it should. Hannah sat in her car for a full minute before stepping out. It was past 9 p.m. The streetlights cast long shadows across cracked sidewalks, and somewhere in the distance, a train rumbled like a distant memory refusing to fade. She checked the message again. Same address, same instruction. Come alone. Her instincts told her this was reckless, irrational, the kind of decision she would warn her clients against in a heartbeat. But this wasn't the case. This was Ethan, and whatever truth he had taken to the grave. The building was old, 3 stories, chipped paint, a flickering light above the entrance. Hannah pressed the buzzer. No response. She tried the door. Unlocked. Of course it was. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. Her heels echoed against the worn floor as she moved slowly forward. Hello? She called. Nothing. Then, Miss Cole. The voice came from behind her. Hannah turned sharply. A man stepped out from the shadows near the stairwell. Mid-30s, maybe. Clean-cut, but not polished. His eyes studied her like he already knew more than he should. You're late, he said. I didn't agree to be on time, Hannah replied coldly. Who are you? He ignored the question. You went to Mercy General. They told you about the DNA. Her jaw tightened. I'm not having this conversation with a stranger. You're having it with someone who knows Ethan Cole wasn't the man you think he was. That did it. Say his name one more time, Hannah said quietly, dangerously, and you'd better have proof to back it up. The man held her gaze for a long second, then reached into his jacket. Hannah tensed, but he only pulled out a thin envelope. He handed it to her. Start there. She didn't take it immediately. What is this? Something Ethan didn't want you to see. That was all it took. Hannah grabbed the envelope and stepped back slightly, opening it with controlled precision. Inside, photographs, documents, receipts. Her eyes moved quickly, then slowed, then stopped. A photo of Ethan, not unusual, except he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, unfamiliar, her face turned slightly away, but close enough to him to feel intimate. Too intimate. Hannah's stomach tightened. This is nothing, she said sharply. A colleague, a client. Look at the date. She did. 3 months before his death. Her mind raced. That doesn't prove anything. There's more. She flipped through the rest. Medical receipts, clinic visits, names she didn't recognize. And then, one document made her breath catch. Fertility and genetic services. Confidential file. Hannah's fingers stilled. No, she whispered. The man watched her carefully. He went there more than once. That doesn't make sense, she said, shaking her head. We didn't need, her voice faltered. Didn't we? A memory surfaced, faint, blurred at the edges. A quiet conversation late at night. Ethan's voice, gentle, reassuring. These things take time, Hannah. Don't rush it. She had been frustrated back then, impatient. They had been trying for months, maybe longer. But then, she got pregnant. Everything had fallen into place. Perfectly. Too perfectly. This is fabricated, she said suddenly, her voice regaining strength. All of it. You think I'm just going to believe some random? You already do. The words cut clean. Hannah looked up, anger flashing in her eyes. Who are you? The man exhaled slowly. My name is Lucas Bennett. The name meant nothing. I work with the clinic Ethan visited. Something shifted. Not externally, internally. A quiet, irreversible shift. What are you implying? She asked. Lucas stepped closer, but not too close. Ethan came to us alone, he said, more than once. He asked questions about genetic compatibility, about embryo selection, about alternatives. Hannah felt the earth thin around her. No, she said again, softer now. We didn't do IVF. We didn't. Are you sure? Her mind reeled. Memories began to rearrange themselves. Doctor visits she didn't fully remember. Appointments Ethan insisted on attending alone. The way he had been calmer than her, less desperate, like he already knew something she didn't. He wouldn't do that, she said, but the conviction was gone. Lucas didn't argue. He simply said, he already did. The drive home was quieter than before. Not because Hannah had fewer thoughts, but because they had become too loud to process. Ethan's face lingered in her mind, not as she remembered him, but as he appeared in the photographs. Distant, different, a stranger wearing the shape of someone she loved. She entered the apartment slowly. Everything felt off. Familiar, but wrong. Like a set built to resemble a life that no longer existed. On the wall, a framed photo caught her attention. Ethan, holding newborn Noah, smiling. Hannah stepped closer. For years, she had looked at that photo and seen love. Now, she saw something else. Guilt. Or was it fear? Her chest tightened. What did you do? She whispered. Later that night, she opened a drawer she hadn't touched in years. Inside, old letters, cards, fragments of a life she thought she understood. She sat on the floor, pulling them out one by one. Birthday notes, anniversary messages, Ethan's handwriting, familiar, careful. She read quickly at first, then slower, searching, not for memories, for inconsistencies. And then, she found it. A letter, undated, unfinished, her name at the top. Hannah, if you're reading this, it means I didn't find the cards to tell you myself. Her breath caught. She read on. I thought I was protecting you, protecting us, but the truth is, I was protecting myself. Her hands began to tremble. You wanted a child so badly, and I couldn't give you that, not in the way you deserved. Tears blurred the words, but she forced herself to continue. So I made the choice, one I thought would make everything right. The room felt like it was closing in. I'm sorry. That was it. No explanation, no details, just an apology. 10 years too late. Hannah lowered the letter slowly. Her mind spun, connecting pieces that no longer fit together cleanly. DNA results, clinic records, Ethan's secrecy, the letter, a choice. He had made a choice, without her. Her chest rose sharply as the realization settled in. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate, calculated. A life built on a decision she never agreed to. From down the hall, Noah's soft breathing echoed faintly. Hannah closed her eyes. For a moment, she let herself feel it all. The betrayal, the grief, the anger, and beneath it, something even more dangerous. Doubt. Not about Ethan, but about everything else. About every memory, every moment, every truth she thought she knew. She stood slowly, walking to Noah's door. She didn't open it, just stood there, listening, grounding herself in the only thing that still felt real. Or at least, she hoped it was. Behind her, on the table, Ethan's letter remained open, silent, but louder than anything else in the room. Because now, for the first time, Hannah wasn't just questioning the past. She was afraid of what the future might reveal, and whether any part of her life had ever truly been hers at all. The next morning, Hannah didn't go to work. For the first time in years, she ignored the emails, the missed calls, the carefully constructed rhythm of her professional life. The version of herself that thrived on control, on certainty, felt distant now, almost irrelevant, because there was only one thing that mattered: the truth. Lucas Bennett's office didn't look like what Hannah expected. No sleek glass walls, no polished corporate aesthetic. Just a modest clinic tucked between a pharmacy and a cafe in lower Manhattan. The kind of place people passed without noticing. Inside, it was quiet. Clinical, but not cold. Hannah stepped in, her heels softer against the floor this time, her presence less commanding than usual. "Cole," Lucas said, already standing as if he had been expecting her. "I don't have time for vague answers today," she replied. "I want everything. No filtering. No protecting me." His expression didn't change. "All right." She didn't sit. "Start talking." They moved into a smaller consultation room. On the table between them lay a tablet, already loaded with files. Lucas tapped the screen once. "There are 3 primary possibilities," he began. "None of them are simple." Hannah crossed her arms. "Try me." He held her gaze. "First, a hospital mix-up." Hannah's jaw tightened. "You already mentioned that." "Yes, it's rare, but documented. Newborns accidentally switched at birth. It would mean the child you gave birth to was given to another family, and Noah was given to you." The words hit differently this time, less abstract, more real. "And no one noticed?" she asked. "For 10 years?" "It depends," Lucas said. "If both children were healthy, if no one questioned anything, it's possible." Hannah shook her head immediately. "No, I would have known." "Would you?" The question lingered, uncomfortable, because the truth was she didn't know anymore. Lucas tapped the screen again. Second possibility, fertility clinic error. Hannah frowned. "We didn't use a clinic." "You're sure?" Her silence answered for her. Lucas continued carefully. "If Ethan sought treatment privately, if donor material was used without your knowledge, there could have been an embryo mix-up, or intentional substitution." Hannah felt her pulse spike. "You're saying he, what, went behind my back and, what, designed a child?" "I'm saying it's possible he made decisions you weren't aware of." Her laugh was sharp, humorless. "Decisions about my body? My pregnancy? My child?" Lucas didn't flinch. "Yes." The word landed like a slap. Hannah turned away, pacing once across the room. Images flashed in her mind, Ethan insisting on certain doctors, appointments he attended alone. The way he used to say, "Trust me, Hannah, I've got this." Her stomach twisted. "You said 3 possibilities," she said, her voice tighter now. Lucas nodded. "The third is the hardest to hear." She turned back slowly. "Say it." He hesitated for the first time. Then, deliberate deception. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. "What does that mean?" Hannah asked. "It means," Lucas said carefully, "that Ethan may have known exactly what he was doing. That Noah's origins weren't an accident, but a choice." Hannah's heart pounded. A choice for what? Lucas held her gaze. "To give you a child, at any cost." The room felt smaller, or maybe it was just her world closing in. "That doesn't make sense," she said, shaking her head. "Why would he lie? Why not just tell me the truth?" "Because the truth might have cost him you." The answer came too easily, too logically, and that made it worse. Hannah pressed her hand against her forehead. "No, Ethan wasn't. He wouldn't." But the words felt weak now, like something she was trying to convince herself of. "Not him. Not us." Lucas softened slightly. I'm not asking you to accept any of this yet, he said. I'm asking you to consider it. Hannah looked up, her eyes sharp again, but something fragile lingered beneath. What about Noah? Lucas didn't answer immediately. What about him, she pressed. If we run a full genetic profile, he said slowly, we may be able to identify biological relatives. Parents, extended family. It depends on database matches. And if we find them, Hannah wasn't sure why her voice sounded so quiet. Then you know where he came from. She swallowed. And my child? The words barely made it out. Lucas hesitated. If there was a switch or an error, it's possible your biological child is out there, alive, or not, raised by someone else. Or, Hannah's chest tightened sharply. Stop, she said, holding up a hand. Because that path, that line of thought, would break her completely. Noah doesn't know, she said after a long pause. Lucas nodded. That's your decision. He's 10, she repeated. He has a life, a school, friends, a mother. The last word caught in her throat. Lucas noticed. You are his mother, he said quietly. Hannah looked at him. Am I? The question hung between them, raw, unresolved. They ran the test that afternoon. Lucas handled everything himself, careful, precise, professional. But Hannah noticed something else beneath it. Concern. Not clinical, personal. Why are you helping me? She asked suddenly. Lucas paused, glancing up from the sample. Because you deserve answers. That's not enough. He held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Ethan asked me the same question once. Something shifted. Hannah's breath stilled. When? She asked. A few months before he died. The room went quiet again. What did you tell him? Lucas's expression darkened slightly. The truth. And what was that? He looked back down at his work. That some choices don't stay buried. That evening, Hannah sat across from Noah at the dinner table. Spaghetti. Too much sauce. Just the way he liked it. You're quiet, Noah said, twirling his fork. Long day, she replied. He studied her. You've had a lot of those lately. Kids notice things. Always. Hannah forced a small smile. I'm okay. He didn't look convinced. Did I do something? He asked again. The same question, the same quiet fear. Hannah's chest tightened. Noah, she stopped, because for a split second, just a second, she didn't know what to say. Did I do something? No, but everything about you might be something I don't understand. The thought made her feel sick. She reached across the table, taking his hand. You didn't do anything wrong, she said firmly. Not ever. He relaxed slightly. Promise? She hesitated. Just long enough to feel it. Then, promise. Later that night, after Noah had gone to bed, Hannah stood alone in the living room. The silence felt different now, heavier, like it was waiting. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. Results will take 48 hours. 48 hours. 2 days. 2 days until everything changed. Or didn't. Hannah stared at the message, then at the hallway leading to Noah's room. Her son. Not her son. She closed her eyes, because the truth, whatever it was coming. And for the first time in her life, Hannah Cole wasn't sure she was ready to face it. The waiting was the worst part. Not the fear, not the questions. The waiting. 48 hours had never felt this long. Hannah had built her life on deadlines, on precision, on knowing exactly when things would resolve. But this was different. There was no control here, no strategy, just time stretching thin over something fragile and irreversible. And in that space, something began to break. Mom, you forgot my lunch. Noah's voice cut through the morning like a small, careful knock. Hannah blinked, pulled back from wherever her mind had drifted. The kitchen stood half-finished around her. Coffee untouched, toast burned, her phone lit up with unread messages she hadn't opened. What? My lunch, Noah repeated, holding up his empty backpack. You always pack it before I wake up. Always. The word lingered. Hannah stared at him for a second too long. Right. Sorry. She turned quickly, moving through the motions. Bread, peanut butter, apple slices. Familiar actions, muscle memory. But something was off. Her hands moved, her mind didn't follow. Behind her, Noah watched, quiet, observing. Are you mad at me? He asked suddenly. The question hit her like a crack in glass. Hannah froze. No. Too fast, too sharp. She softened her tone immediately. No, sweetheart, of course not. Then why are you acting weird? There it was, Simple, direct, honest. Children didn't dress things up. They didn't pretend not to notice. They just asked. Hannah turned, forcing a small smile. I just have a lot on my mind. Work? Yeah, it was easier than the truth. Safer. Noah nodded slowly, but his eyes didn't leave her face, like he was trying to read something she wasn't saying. Okay, he said quietly, but it didn't sound like he believed her. The apartment felt different after he left, quieter than usual, hollow. Hannah stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the half-empty glass of water on the counter. 10 years. 10 years of routines, habits, shared moments, and now every single one of them felt uncertain. She closed her eyes, because a thought had been circling her mind all morning, and she hated it. If he's not mine, she inhaled sharply. No, she wouldn't finish that sentence. She couldn't. Work didn't help. If anything, it made it worse. Hannah sat across from a client, a mother fighting for custody, listening to a story she had heard 100 times before. I've raised her since she was born, the woman said, her voice trembling. He can't just come back and take her from me. Biology doesn't make him her father. I do. Hannah's chest tightened. Normally, she would respond immediately, confident, sharp, certain. But today, she hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. Miss Cole? The client asked, confused. Hannah blinked. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The woman frowned slightly, unsettled. Hannah never asked people to repeat themselves. Not her. Not the woman who always had the answer. By the time she got home, the guilt had settled deep, heavy, unshakable. Noah was already there, sitting on the couch, homework spread out in front of him. You're late, he said, not looking up. I know, Hannah replied softly. She sat her back down, watching him for a moment. He looked the same. Same posture, same focus, same child. But something inside her had shifted, and she hated herself for it. Can you help me with this? Noah asked, pushing his notebook toward her. Math, simple. She used to love moments like this, sitting beside him, guiding him, watching him understand. Now she sat down slowly. Sure. He leaned closer, pointing at the problem. Hannah tried to focus. Numbers, steps, logic. But her mind kept drifting. To test results, to Ethan, to the letter, to the possibility that everything in this room, every memory, was built on something false. You're not paying attention, Noah said. She blinked. I am. No, you're not. There was no anger in his voice, just quiet certainty. Hannah felt something twisting her chest. I'm just tired. You keep saying that. He looked at her now, really looked. Did I do something wrong? Again, always that question. Hannah's throat tightened. Noah. But the words didn't come easily this time, because underneath everything, underneath the love, the habit, the years, there was something else now. Doubt. Not about him, but about herself. About what she was allowed to feel. About what was real. I need some air, she said suddenly, standing up. Noah frowned. But we're not done. I know, just give me a minute. She walked out onto the balcony before he could say anything else. The cold air hit her immediately. Sharp, grounding. She gripped the railing, her breath uneven. What is wrong with me? He's still Noah. Nothing has changed. Except everything had. And she hated that her heart was struggling to keep up with what her mind was learning. Behind her, the sliding door opened slightly. Mom? His voice was softer now, careful, like he was afraid of pushing too hard. Hannah didn't turn around immediately. Yes? A pause, then, are you still my mom? The question shattered something inside her, completely. She turned then, quickly, her eyes wide. What? He stood there, small against the dim light of the apartment. I heard you on the phone yesterday, he said quietly. At night. Hannah's pulse spiked. What did you hear? Just stuff, he shrugged slightly. About tests and not matching. Silence fell. Heavy. Unavoidable. Noah looked down at his hands. Am I adopted or something? The innocence in the question made it worse. So much worse. Hannah stepped toward him slowly. No, she said quickly. No, it's not like that. Then, what is it like? She opened her mouth and nothing came out. Because how do you explain something you don't even understand yourself? How do you tell a child that the ground beneath both of you might not be real? I don't know yet, she admitted finally. It was the first honest thing she had said all day. Noah looked up at her, confusion written all over his face. But you're still my mom, right? The question lingered, fragile, terrifying. Hannah felt tears rise before she could stop them. She crossed the distance between them and pulled him into her arms, tightly, desperately. Yes, she whispered, even if she wasn't sure what that meant anymore. Yes. He held on to her just as tightly, like he needed the answer to be true, like he couldn't afford for it not to be. And neither could she. That night, long after Noah had gone to bed, Hannah sat alone again. Same silence, same weight. But now there was something new. Fear. Not of the truth, but of what it might do to them. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. Results are ready. Hannah stared at the screen. Her heart pounded. This was it. The moment everything would either make sense or fall apart completely. She stood slowly, grabbing her coat, because waiting was no longer an option, not anymore. In the hallway, she paused outside Noah's door, listening. His breathing was soft, steady, innocent. Hannah closed her eyes, just for a second, then whispered, barely audible, "Please, don't let this change how I love you." But deep down she already knew. It had, and that was the part she couldn't forgive herself for. The clinic was quieter at night, not closed but subdued. Lights dimmed, hallways emptier, conversations softer, as if the building itself understood the weight of what happened inside it. Hannah stepped through the glass doors just after 9:40 p.m., her reflection faint against the polished surface. For a brief moment she didn't recognize herself. Not the woman who walked into courtrooms and dismantled lives with precision, not the mother who had spent 10 years building a world around the child she loved without question. Just someone unraveling. Lucas was already waiting. "You came," he said, standing near the reception desk. "I didn't have a choice." He studied her for a second. "You always have a choice." Hannah shook her head. "Not tonight." They moved quickly down the hallway, past closed doors and silent machines. Lucas stopped in front of a secured room, keycard in hand. "Before we go in," he said, turning to her, "you need to understand something." "I already do," Hannah replied. "Ethan lied to me." Lucas hesitated. "It's more than that." Her chest tightened. "Then stop talking and show me." The room was small, colder than the rest of the clinic. A single desk, a locked cabinet, a computer screen already glowing faintly in the dark. Lucas set a file down in front of her. This was Ethan's case. Hannah stared at it. Her name wasn't on it. Only his. Ethan Cole, private consultation file. Her fingers hovered for a second, then opened it. Page 1. Initial consultation. Notes from a doctor she didn't recognize. Patient reports infertility concerns. Requests discretion. Hannah's breath caught. Infertility? Ethan had never told her that. Not once. She flipped the page. Test results. Medical terminology. Numbers. Cold facts. Lucas spoke quietly beside her. Ethan couldn't have biological children. The words settled heavily. Permanently. Hannah's grip tightened on the paper. "No," she whispered. "That's not... He never... He didn't tell you," Lucas said gently. "But he knew." Her vision blurred slightly, but she forced herself to keep reading, because stopping now would be worse. More pages, more notes. Patient expresses urgency. Partner unaware. Request alternative solutions without disclosure. Hannah felt something crack open inside her. "He made a plan," Lucas continued. "A very specific one." Her heart pounded. What kind of plan? Lucas didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next page did it for him. Procedure authorization. Confidential donor material approved. Embryo transfer scheduled. Hannah's hands began to shake. "No." Her voice broke. "No, I would have known. I was there. I remember. Do you?" Lucas asked quietly. The question hit harder than anything else, because suddenly she wasn't sure. Memories surfaced, fragmented, distorted. Doctor visits that felt rushed. Forms she signed without reading carefully. Ethan always beside her, guiding, reassuring. "It's just routine, Hannah. Trust me." Her stomach twisted violently. Trust me, she had. Completely. Blindly. He used donor material, Lucas said carefully. But that's not all. Hannah looked up, her eyes glassy. What do you mean? Lucas hesitated, then reached for another file. This wasn't just about having a child. He opened it slowly. This was about control. Inside, more documents, more details, more truth. Too much truth. Genetic selection, request, preferred traits noted. Hannah's breath stopped. No. Her voice was barely there now. He chose? She whispered. Lucas nodded. He selected specific genetic markers. Intelligence, physical health, even behavioral predispositions. Hannah stared at the page like it might burn her. This isn't real. But it was. Every word, every signature, every decision. Ethan's. He didn't just hide the truth from you, Lucas said softly. He rewrote it. The room felt like it was closing in. Hannah stepped back slightly, her hand pressing against the edge of the desk for support. This wasn't supposed to happen, she said, shaking her head. We didn't plan this. We tried, and then I got pregnant. That's how it happened. Lucas watched her carefully. That's what you were meant to believe. The words cut deeper than anything else, because they didn't just challenge her past, they erased it. And Noah, she asked suddenly, her voice sharp again, desperate. Where does he fit into all of this? Lucas's expression shifted, more serious now, more cautious. That's where things get complicated. Hannah's pulse spiked. Tell me. He exhaled slowly. The embryo used in your procedure may not have been the one Ethan selected. Silence. What? There was a discrepancy, Lucas continued. A record mismatch. It was flagged internally, but never reported. Hannah's heart pounded violently. You're saying, what, there was a mistake? Possibly. Possibly, she repeated, her voice rising. That's not good enough. Lucas stepped closer, his tone steady. There are two possibilities. Hannah felt like she was standing on the edge of something irreversible. Either the clinic made an error, her breath caught, or someone changed the records. The implication hung in the air, dark, unspoken. But why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would anyone do that? Lucas didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said something else. Ethan came back here 2 weeks before he died. Hannah's head snapped up. What? He asked for access to this file. Her heart raced. And? Lucas held her gaze. He already knew something was wrong. Everything inside her collapsed at once. Not suddenly, not violently, but completely. Ethan knew. He knew. And he said nothing. Not to her, not to anyone. He carried that truth, that betrayal, to his grave. Hannah sank into the chair behind her, her legs no longer steady. 10 years. 10 years of love, of trust, of believing in a man who had built their entire life on a lie. A deliberate one, calculated, selfish. Why didn't he tell me? She whispered. Lucas's voice was quiet. Maybe he was afraid of losing you. Hannah let out a broken laugh. He already did. The room fell silent. Only the faint hum of machines filled the space. Hannah stared at the documents in front of her, at Ethan's signature, at the life he had designed without her consent. And for the first time, she felt something stronger than confusion, stronger than grief. Anger. Raw, unforgiving. Because this wasn't just a secret. It was a theft. Of her body, of her choices, of her truth. And my child? She asked suddenly, her voice trembling again. Lucas looked at her. You still want to find them? Hannah closed her eyes. Because that question, that possibility, was the most dangerous of all. Somewhere out there, there might be another child. Her child. The one she never got to hold, never got to know. And Noah was here, sleeping in her home, calling her mom, trusting her, loving her, without question. Hannah's chest tightened painfully. I don't know, she admitted. It was the truth, and it terrified her. Lucas nodded slowly. We'll find the answers, he said. Hannah looked at him. For the first time, she didn't feel in control, didn't feel certain, didn't feel like the woman she used to be. Be careful what you look for, he added quietly, because once you know... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Hannah already understood. Some truths don't just change your life, they destroy the version of it you were trying to hold on to. As she left the clinic that night, the city felt different, colder, sharper, less forgiving. Her phone buzzed, a notification, unknown sender, Another message. She hesitated, then opened it. A photo, grainy, distant, but unmistakable. A child, about Noah's age, standing beside a woman Hannah had never seen before. Below it, one sentence. This is your real son. Hannah's world stopped, completely. Because in that moment, the past wasn't just haunting her anymore. It was reaching out, demanding to be found. The photo didn't leave her hands all night. Hannah sat on the edge of the bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting shadows across her face. The image on her phone felt heavier than anything she had ever held before. A boy, brown hair, sharp eyes, a posture that felt familiar in a way she couldn't explain. This is your real son. Her chest tightened violently. No, she whispered into the silence. No, that's not how this works. But nothing about her life worked the way it used to anymore. She didn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., she found herself standing in front of the closet she hadn't opened in years. Ethan's things were still there. Pressed shirts, old jackets, a life preserved like nothing had changed. For 10 years, she had kept it that way. Out of love, out of loyalty, out of grief. Now, it felt like a crime scene. Hannah reached out slowly, her fingers brushing against the fabric of his coat. "Who were you?" she whispered. The question echoed softly in the dark. No answer. Of course. Ethan had never been good at answering the questions that mattered. She pulled the coat down, checked the pockets. Nothing. Then the next one. And the next. Until her fingers brushed against something small. Hidden. Carefully placed. Her breath caught as she pulled it out. A key. Old, metallic, unlabeled. Hannah stared at it, her pulse quickening. Because Ethan had never kept anything without a reason. The safety deposit box was at a bank she didn't recognize. Of course it was. Another secret, another life. The clerk barely looked at her as she signed the paperwork. Just another customer, another transaction. Normal. Everything looked normal. Until the box slid open. Inside, letters. Stacks of them. Neatly arranged, organized, planned. Hannah's hands trembled as she picked up the first one. Her name was written on it. Hannah. No date, no explanation. Just her name. She opened it. Hannah, if you found this, then it means everything I was trying to hold together has already fallen apart. Her breath hitched. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. I just need you to know. I never did any of this to hurt you. Tears blurred the words, but she kept reading. You wanted a child, more than anything, and I watched it break you, piece by piece, every time it didn't happen. Her chest tightened painfully. I couldn't give you that, not naturally, and I was too afraid to tell you why. Her fingers clenched the paper. So I made a decision for both of us. A decision. The world felt like poison now. I told myself it was love, that giving you a child, any child, would fix everything. Hannah shook her head slowly, tears slipping down her face. No, you don't get to call that love. But the letter continued. I controlled everything, the clinic, the process, the outcome. I made sure you would never question it. Her breath became uneven, but something went wrong. Her eyes froze on the line. The embryo they used, it wasn't the one I chose. The room seemed to tilt. I didn't know at first, not until later. And by then, the sentence stopped. Incomplete, like he couldn't finish it, or didn't have the courage to. Hannah's hands trembled violently as she reached for the next letter. This one was shorter, messier, desperate. I saw the results. I know he's not biologically ours, not even through the donor I selected. Her heart pounded in her ears. But he's yours now. He's part of you. And I couldn't take that away from you. Tears fell faster now, blurring everything. I thought about telling you, every day, but every time I looked at you with him, I knew I'd destroy everything. Her chest felt like it was collapsing inward. So I chose silence. The words cut deeper than anything else, because silence wasn't mutual. It was a choice, a betrayal. If you ever find out, I hope you'll understand that I was trying to protect the only thing that ever mattered to me. Hannah let out a broken laugh. Protect? She whispered. You destroyed it. The last letter was different, short, almost unfinished. Hannah, if something happens to me, her breath caught. Don't go looking for the truth unless you're ready to lose everything. She stopped reading, because it was too late for that. She already had. The bank felt colder when she stepped outside. Or maybe it was just her, because something inside her had finally broken. Not cracked, not weakened, broken. Completely. By the time she got home, the sun was already rising. Soft light filled the apartment. Peaceful, normal. A lie. Noah was awake, sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. "You left," he said quietly. Hannah froze. "I had something to take care of." "You didn't tell me." Guilt hit instantly, sharp. "I'm sorry." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, "Are you going to leave me too?" The question shattered what little composure she had left. "What? No, Noah, I would never." "You've been acting different," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You don't look at me the same anymore." Hannah's heart stopped, because he was right, and that was the worst part. "I'm still me," he continued. "I'm still Noah." She stepped closer slowly. "I know. Then why does it feel like something's wrong?" "Because everything is wrong," the thought screamed in her mind, but she couldn't say it. She wouldn't. Instead, she knelt in front of him, her hands shaking as she reached for his. "Listen to me," she said, her voice breaking. Nothing you did caused this. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly, but something did. The quiet truth in his words hit harder than anything else. Hannah swallowed. "Yes, then tell me." She opened her mouth, then stopped, because this was the moment, the line, the choice, truth or protection. And for the first time in her life, Hannah didn't know which one was right. She looked at him, really looked, at the boy she had raised, loved, protected, for 10 years. Not because of biology, not because of truth, but because he was hers, in every way that mattered, even if the world said otherwise. Tears filled her eyes as she pulled him into her arms. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. Not an answer, but the only one she could give. Noah held on to her tightly, like he needed to believe it, like he needed her to mean it. And this time, Hannah made a decision, not based on the past, not based on Ethan, not based on truth, but on something else, something stronger. Love. Messy, complicated, imperfect, but real. Because maybe the truth could destroy her. Maybe it already had. But she wouldn't let it destroy him. Not Noah. Never Noah. Across the room, Ethan's letters sat open. Silent witnesses to everything he had done. Everything he had hidden. Everything he had taken from her. Hannah looked at them one last time. Her expression no longer just broken, but resolute. Because the past didn't get to decide what happened next. She did. But as she held Noah closer, one question still lingered. Unanswered. Unavoidable. Somewhere out there, another child existed. Waiting. Unknown. Unclaimed. And sooner or later, Hannah would have to face that truth too. Whether she was ready or not. The truth didn't arrive like a storm. It didn't shatter windows or tear the world apart in a single moment. It settled. Quietly. Like dust. And once it did, everything looked different. Hannah stopped chasing answers, not because she didn't care anymore, but because she finally understood what the answers would cost. The messages stopped first. The unknown number went silent, as if it had said everything it needed to. The photo remained on her phone, untouched, unspoken. She didn't delete it, but she didn't open it again either. Because some truths didn't demand action. They demanded acceptance. Lucas called twice, left one message. "We found a partial match," he said. "It could lead us to him." Hannah listened to it once, then sat in silence for a long time. Her hand rested on the table, right next to Noah's school schedule. Soccer practice on Thursday, math test on Friday. A life. Real. Immediate. Present. Not hypothetical, not lost in the past. She didn't call Lucas back. Weeks passed, then months. Life didn't return to normal. It reshaped itself into something quieter, something more honest. Hannah worked less. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. She started coming home earlier, cooking more often, listening more carefully. The little things she used to do automatically now felt intentional, earned. Every moment with Noah carried a different weight now. Not obligation, not habit. Choice. "Mom, you're staring again." Noah's voice pulled her back. They were sitting on the couch, a movie playing in the background. "I am not," she replied softly. "You are," he smiled. "You do that now." Hannah exhaled lightly. "Do what?" "Look at me like you're thinking about something important." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I am." He tilted his head. "Is it about me?" Always direct, always honest. Hannah nodded slowly. Yeah. He waited. But this time she didn't avoid it. There's something I should have told you sooner, she said. Noah's expression shifted slightly. Not afraid, just ready. Hannah turned toward him fully, her voice calm but steady. When you were born, something happened. Something we didn't know about at the time. He listened carefully. There was a mistake. Or maybe something more complicated than that. She paused, choosing each word. But what matters is this. Her voice softened. I'm not your biological mother. The silence that followed wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Deep. Noah blinked, processing. Okay, he said after a moment. Hannah felt her chest tighten. Okay? He shrugged slightly. You're still my mom. The simplicity of it broke something inside her all over again. But this time it didn't hurt the same way. Does it bother you? She asked gently. He thought about it, then shook his head. Not really. Hannah let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Why not? Noah looked at her like the answer was obvious. Because you're the one who stayed. The words landed softly, but they carried more weight than anything else in the world. You're the one who makes my lunch, he continued, who helps me with homework, who knows I hate tomatoes but still makes me eat them. A small smile formed on Hannah's lips. You're the one who's here. That was it. No complexity, no doubt, just truth. The kind that didn't need proof. Hannah pulled him into a hug. Not tight, not desperate, just steady, certain. I'm always going to be here, she whispered, and this time she didn't hesitate. Later that night, after Noah had gone to bed, Hannah sat alone in the living room, the same space where everything had once begun to fall apart. Now it felt different, not whole, but grounded. She picked up her phone, scrolled to Lucas's message, the one she never answered. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For a moment, just a moment, she considered it. The other child, the missing piece, the life that could have been, or still might be. Her chest tightened slightly, because that part of the story wasn't finished. It never would be. But some stories didn't need endings. They needed boundaries. Hannah locked her phone, set it down, and let the silence settle around her. Not heavy this time, just quiet. Across the hallway, Noah shifted in his sleep. A soft sound, familiar, real. Hannah glanced toward his door. Her expression softened, because in the end, that was what remained. Not the lies, not the betrayal, not the truth that had torn everything apart, but this. A boy, a mother, a life built not on blood, but on choice. Ethan had tried to control everything, to design a perfect outcome, to create a version of love that couldn't fail. But love didn't work that way. It never had. It wasn't something you engineered. It was something you lived, every day, in small, imperfect ways. Hannah stood slowly, walking to the window. The city stretched out before her, unchanged, unforgiving, alive. She pressed her hand lightly against the glass. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel lost. Not completely. Because even though the truth had shattered her past, it had also given her something else. Clarity. She wasn't Noah's mother because of biology. She was his mother because she chose to be. Every single day. And he chose her back. Behind her, the apartment remained still. Peaceful. Not perfect, but real. And somewhere out there, another life continued. Unseen, unclaimed. A question without an answer. A truth without a resolution. But here, in this moment, Hannah finally understood something she hadn't before. Not every truth needs to be chased. Some only need to be carried. The light in the living room dimmed as she turned it off. And in the quiet that followed, there was no more fear. No more doubt. Only what remained. And somehow, that was enough.